Hello, and welcome back to another episode. Indeed, welcome to a festive episode. I finally feel as though I can get into the Christmas spirit. The office is decorated, the general election is done and dusted, and I can begin looking forward to Christmas, or indeed Christmas Eve, which is my personal favourite time of this part of the year. And I'm going to begin looking forward by looking back to 1989, 1988, 1 or 2 years before we got a Mega Drive for Christmas. My brother and I were completely obsessed with Ghostbusters. They were everywhere. Our friends couldn't stop talking about them. We loved, for example, Slimer. And the idea of goop and slime being it was a very popular thing. The toy market was flooded, as it were, with slime, no pun intended. Much as it is now, actually, it's interesting seeing that cycle come back around. Slime is everywhere once more. Long may it rain. But in particular, it wasn't Ghostbusters necessarily. I know that in 1989, Ghostbusters 2 came out, and therefore there was the popular cultural buzz. But most of that was sort of over our heads, I think. As a sort of, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 year old, it was much more the animated series that we were really engaged with, and in that sense, I think Slimer as a character is much more prominent in that series because he appealed to us in that sense as kids. I remember when I first watched Ghostbusters, the original movie. I was a bit disappointed by Slimer because he wasn't part of the team. He wasn't really that much involved with the story. He was kind of incidental. And it's the way that in the real Ghostbusters, in the cartoon, they folded Slimer into the narrative much more, that I cherished and remembered. And with that in mind, of course, I was absolutely going to need Ghostbusters toys at Christmas. And so we were very fortunate. We were able to get hold of some of the more popular toys at the time. So one of them was the Firehouse. I remember we had that in a living room, which at the time was basically a one long room. It was like a terraced house that had been an old dining room and living room had been knocked through into one long room. And behind a chair that kind of separated the dining room from the living room, where eventually we would put our Mega Drive, that's where we set up the Firehouse. And this was one of the few toys that I was happy to gunk, to actually use the slime or the Play-Doh or whatever to make it messy or crusty. I remember the slime really crusted up Egon in particular, because Egon was my favourite Ghostbuster. In fact, 2 years later, I would put Egon into my dad's coffin. Yeah, it's something that a few years later, when I was still a kid, I'd be like, I wish I hadn't done that. If you'd asked me when I was like 8 or 9, do you want to go and dig your dad up and get Egon back? I probably would have said yes. But yeah, so as much as I loved Egon, he ended up with Dad and is still there to this day. But this was one of the few toys that I was happy to do that with. I've always been quite fastidious with my toys. I've never liked, for example, getting them too gunky or taking them into the sandpit and ruining them or getting them scratching up, this kind of thing. And but in this instance, because it was Ghostbusters, because slime is just part of the deal, it had to happen, and so you could pour it through sort of through the Firehouse. I remember that we had Ecto-1 as well, and I seem to recall we had a backpack between us, one of the proton packs, but I think my brother ruined it. I think he sort of tore the noodle. Don't cross the streams. He ruined that, I think, by chewing on it. I seem to recall. But there is an element of this whole Christmas, this 1989, 1988 paraphernalia that I still have, and I kind of lost it when we moved house, and I rediscovered it the other day, and that is this, the PKE meter. It is broken. Again, I did have a brother who was 2 or 3 years old at the time, and so it should have like a wiggly bit that comes up to here. But this PKE meter is so special to me. It was buried in the back of a wardrobe. I recently uncovered it. I was like, oh my, what the hell? Yeah, it was in with some dumbbells for some reason, and an old pair of slippers just in the, anyway. So this was for me the deal. This actually was the thing that intrigued me the most, because I think I've always been a bit of a scientist. You know, I've always been intrigued, but I've always actually been Egon. That's probably why Egon was my favourite, of course. I've been intrigued by the idea of using technology to discover things, and of course it would take on extra significance when Dad passed away. This idea of science connecting with and communing with the dead. Not that I ever tried to find Dad with this. Don't worry. But I remember loving in the cartoon, and then also when I did finally see the movie. Also, incidentally, was anyone else freaked out that Egon in the film, obviously played by Harold Ramis, has dark hair, whereas Egon in the cartoon has blonde hair and a really prominent, you know, swirly whirly quiff? I was freaked out by that. As I say, I saw the cartoon first, then I saw the movie. I was like, okay, fair enough. Must be a more realistic Egon. But this was the thing for me. I mean, the backpack was okay. I don't think we ever had the trap, the rolly trap, although I think I would have screamed, yeah, with the place down if I got that for Christmas. Oh, it would have been like the, you know, the well, this guy.
I think they're excited.
Absolutely. But this for me was the best part of the Ghostbusters equipment, because it was active. You could find the ghost on the back of it. You've got a little wheel there, so you can actually spin your detector as you kind of thing. And I also remember vividly one day realizing that on the screen is a ghost, digitized, kind of, that's been detected. I hadn't spotted that for some reason. It just hadn't been clear to me. I was you know, just enjoying the and also the dial on it. You can just about see in the right light on the back of the plastic. There's some indentations around the circle here, and the dial on it sort of clicks on each one of those indentations. But I'm a bit shy of doing that because of plastic fatigue. I mean, oh, it just feels like it's going to break. Like, so I'll put it back to neutral position. There you go. All of this was fantastic, and of course in the cartoon, these thingies, you know, these gizmos would turn. There's a button and all this kind of thing, and I'm sorely tempted now, as a grown-up, to mod this and to make it even more usable, because it is broken. I'm tempted to for example, have the aerials pointing downward, as they for the most part did in the series. Well, actually in the movie as well, until a ghost was detected, then they'd sort of rise up, wouldn't they? And obviously paint the dials different. But I'm sort of two minds about it, because also I love this as it is, because this is as I remember it. I'll think about it. Of course, I'll never replace the screen, though. The screen is the pièce de résistance. It is just the thing, isn't it? But this was it. And so in that Christmas, or on that Christmas, I remember that my dad was starting to feel poorly. And that was probably the last Christmas that he was up and about as well. So I remember him playing with us with the Ecto-1, just about. But as ever, the weird thing is, I don't remember him being there. I remember like his hand. You see what I mean? I don't remember him. It's odd. I only have one or two very specific memories of him. But I knew that he was there, and I loved that. And you know, not to have too much of a downer, but I also remember after he had died, Mum had a very difficult time. I mean, she always had a difficult time. She had lots of mental health problems. But she particularly hit a low point on the roller coaster of her life after Dad passed away. Quite rightly, you know, he was her husband, and for a few years our lives were very tumultuous. We were going, especially my brother and I, we were going from house to house, place to if we weren't living at home with mum and her just about surviving, as it were, we were elsewhere or with family, or for example, while she was in some form of recovery or therapy or something like that. And we were staying with, and this is a terrible thing really, we were staying with our cousin, my mum's brother, a guy called Vindictive Vin. I come to think of him as, because he wasn't very nice really, and mum would spend a lot of time in bed because she was very, very depressed basically. And my cousin, chap called, well, I'll just say A, shall we? I won't say what his name is, because he's ended up in difficulties himself, actually, mentally. A stole this from me. And the thing is, he's stolen other things from me as well. For example, he stole Metalhead, the Turtles toy, and that was something that was heartbreaking for me. This sort of point of emotional stability. This robot who wasn't affected by the world around him. But this as well was also a little anchor for me emotionally, because this was something that Dad had got me for Christmas. It was something that kind of made me feel as though I could scan the room and check for problems and feel safe with it. Of course, I would have been 6 or 7, or well, 5, 6, so 5 or 6, maybe 5 or 6. So of course, you're going to hold on to anything that you can that's going to give you a bit of emotional stability. And this totally helped me, oddly enough, get through some very difficult times, especially, well, to be blunt, at that point, sadly, Mum had tried to kill herself, unfortunately. So I didn't know this at the time, but I've since learned that my uncle was being horrible to her, really, really kind of, what are you doing? You've got 2 boys, pull yourself together, which isn't the way to talk to someone if they're that emotionally troubled, if they're going through such a difficult time. And I remember saying, running into the room where she was and saying, my cousin, he's stolen my PKE detector, my was it psychokinetic energy detector? I need it, I said. And she was out of it. She really wasn't with it at all, and she couldn't really help. And that was really, that's a really difficult memory that I have attached to this. But also, I remember when I finally got it back. I think one of the few times my aunt was truly nice to me while I was staying there, because she just saw us as a hassle. What are you doing here, kind of thing. I remember her being really quite sort of, fine, we'll look after you, make sure you don't, get into too much trouble. Because also we had to move schools as well, so we were in the same school as my cousin, and my aunt taught at the school. So it was a very difficult time. I remember she heard about this and she recovered this for me, and she was like, "Look, you can't just be taking that." Even though he took other things, she turned a blind eye to that and gave me this back. And I was very happy to have it. Very happy to have it back. So I'm really sorry if that's turned into a morbid story. But it makes me happy to know that this was there. And also, in a strange sort of way, it's nice to have these things that confirm that happened to you, if that's what I mean, to one. Because the older you get, the more you understand being an adult and how you respond to small children, and how you want to do everything you can to protect them, whether they're related to you or not, or to look after their mental, their well-being. The more I sort of think, that was weird. That was a really weird several years that we went through, right up until I was like 11. And so that this brings a smile to my face, but it also confirms and helps me to not try and pretend that things didn't happen, if you know what I mean. Because there's a tendency, I think, for people to sort of to think that being happy is the goal in life, as opposed to accepting contentment and finding a place where you are safe and you feel that you don't need or want more, for example, and that you can acknowledge and understand the lovely people in your life, and that you look back on that with gratitude, and that you reflect on that, and this kind of helps me to do that. You know, it reminds me, actually, that did happen, but look where you are now, and that makes me smile as well, if that makes any sense at all. I don't know. But anyway, this wonderful thing, this PKE meter, 1989, 1988, came into my life, and I love it. I love it, and particularly I love the screen. Woo! I wonder what the .03 is. Is that kind of the like, you know how Ray would rank ghosts, wouldn't he? And he'd say, "Oh, this is a class 2, class whatever, you know, class 3 Spectre." I wonder if that's what that is, or if it's something to do with the focus. You know, you're focusing in on the ghost. Well, I guess it can be anything you want it to be, can't it? Because it's play. Thank you guys for watching. Incidentally as well, I am well aware of the new Ghostbusters trailer, Ghostbusters Afterlife. That looks like a lot of fun. I appreciate all the Easter eggs in there, the mould, spores and fungus, for example, the symmetrical book stacking that turns up, the reference to, oh, is it Igor, Ivor or something? The chap, no, Igor is the guy who owned the building where Gozer appeared in the first movie. The guy who was doing all the unnecessary surgery in that first movie. He owns the mine, I think, in the trailer that turns up. Very much intrigued by that. I hope that they do it justice. And also, I appreciate the what's the word? The tribute, it seems, to Harold Ramis, in so much as they're not ignoring Egon. They're not saying, oh, he's on holiday or something. He has passed away, and these are his grandkids rediscovering his inventions. So cool, so cool. And also, in that sense, it taps into what the real Ghostbusters tapped into back then, in what the cartoon tapped into, and that is the appeal of Ghostbusters to younger people and to kids. You know, I think by the look of the trailer, it looks like this movie is going to do that, but also it's not going to alienate grown-ups either, which is good, I think, or alienate people like me. Thank you for watching, guys. As ever, until next time, do take care. Christmas is finally coming. Merry Christmas.